High in the Zanskar Range, a small band of climbers defied storms, crevasses, and thin air, seeking a path to Nun-Kun, the mountain that guarded its summit like a fortress of ice.
It's 2:20 a.m. I'm still buried in the Himalayan Club Journals, century-old field notes from the Himalayas. It's like diving deep into the documented history of the Himalayas from the early 1900s. The journals cover everything, from indigenous wisdom, cultural myths, to epic expeditions and groundbreaking discoveries. These forgotten stories are brought to life by synthetic voices in the Himalayan Journals podcast. Subscribe, zone out, binge, and pass it to a fellow mountain junkie.
The wind that brought trouble to the Mohmans in September 1933 brought a chance to J.B. Harrison. It was then that he first met Waller and first heard the name of Nun-Kun. Waller had been reading the workman's book, Peaks and Glaciers of the Nun-Kun, and he decided that here was a mountain where a small party might find good climbing without a large and expensive expedition. By the spring of 1934, the plan was in place. Waller, Eustace, Wood, and Harrison gathered for the journey. Their approach was through the Suru Valley. They marched up from Kargil, and with them came porters carrying the stores. By June 20th, they were at Golmatangas, below the great Icefall of the Shafat Glacier. Here they set up their first base. The next stage was to gain the head of the glacier. On June 24th, Waller and Wood, with porters, moved up the eastern side, establishing Camp 1 at 15,000 feet. The climb was steep, but the weather held. A few days later they went higher, and on June 28th, Camp 2 was placed at 17,500 feet. The following morning, Harrison and Eustace joined them. The whole party was now on the upper glacier under the north face of Nun-Kun. Snow and ice surrounded them. Their aim was to make a reconnaissance, for the workmen's accounts had left many details uncertain. They explored the northern approaches first, and then moved steadily toward the western side. The glacier rose in long sweeps, broken by crevasses, but progress was steady. On July 2nd, they made an attempt on the great northwest peak. Starting from Camp 2, they climbed through snow slopes and ice ridges, reaching a height of about 20,000 feet. The weather turned, clouds came in, and they were forced to retreat. Still, the way ahead was becoming clearer. Next came the decision to try the southwest face of Kun itself. On July 5th, they shifted their camp again, placing Camp 3 at 19,500 feet. It was a hard carry, with the porters struggling in the thin air. The mountain loomed above them, its walls shining in the sun. On July 8th, they made their first real attempt on Kun. Leaving Camp 3, they climbed high up the face, gaining nearly 22,000 feet. But the snow was deep, the weather uncertain, and they turned back once more. The following days were spent resting, drying clothes, and waiting for a chance. That chance came on July 11th. The four climbers set out together, climbing steadily upwards. By midday, they reached the shoulder at about 22,800 feet. The view was wide, the peaks of Zanskar stretching away into the distance. They pressed on, but the summit was still high, and heavy clouds were forming. At 23,300 feet, with snow beginning to fall, they turned back again. Safety came first. The next day, the storm broke. High winds swept the ridges, and for days the mountain was hidden in cloud. The porters grew restless, and supplies were running low. It was clear The season was too far gone. They had made their attempt, and though the summit was not reached, they had climbed higher than any before them on Kun. On July 15th, they broke camp and began the retreat. Down the glacier they marched, past the Icefall, back to the green valley of the Suru. The expedition was over. It had been a short and simple venture, without the weight of large organizations or elaborate equipment, yet it opened a way to the mountain and showed what could be done by a small party with determination. Nun-Kun still kept its crown, but the climbers of 1934 left their mark high upon its flanks.